Okay, so we did the chanting straight away before meditations and then the Dharma talk. I hope everybody is well, staying safe, being happy, contented, non-attached, moral, meditative, wise, compassionate, all of these. Not putting too much pressure on you though. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sammasambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sammasambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sammasambuddhassa. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammam saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi Sangham saranam gacchami, Tatayampi Buddham saranam gacchami, Tatayampi Dhammam saranam gacchami, Tatayampi Sangham saranam gacchami. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May they be free from suffering and its causes. May they never be parted from their happiness beyond suffering. May they abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment to the near, and aversion from the far. I shall cause this great compassionate Buddha, please inspire me to be able to do so. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every types of offerings, actual and mentally transformed. I confess all of my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in all the virtues of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until cyclic existence ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for all sentient beings. I dedicate the virtues of myself and others to the great enlightenment. However innumerable all sentient beings are, about to save them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, about to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, about to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, about to follow it completely. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Tayata Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhi Soha. Tayata Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhi Soha. Tayata Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhi Soha. So now get yourself comfy for meditation practice. So initially we will release the tension from the body. And also remind you that if you need to get more instruction or be reminded of the instruction during this meditation, as well as the breath meditation, and the loving kindness meditation, then you should view, I think it's number 22, the video number 22 from the 2nd of January that I would have reposted on Facebook in the last couple of months. So just have a look at that and follow that instruction. There's at least about half hour of instruction. Okay, so we're not doing as much instruction at present, so we get longer Dharma talks. Okay, so now focus on releasing the tension from your lower body, from the waist down to the tips of your toes. As you were doing this, also may I suggest that you do this before class as well. So if you have the time before the classes, then you can do longer meditation yourself, release the tension, focus on your breath, and even do loving kindness meditation. Because of our time constraints, we are very limited to the time we can focus on each aspect. And I do want to put it into practice for us, the chanting, the meditation, as well as the Dharma talk, all in the one class. I think it works well. So now release from the upper body, from your waist up to your shoulders and down to the tips of your fingers. And also from all around your head to the top of your head. Remember, make sure you're not clenching your jaw or frowning. Your face is nice and relaxed. And now you can scan your body from the bottom to the top, and just to see if there's any more tension you can get rid of. Or maybe a better way to put it is free yourself from that tension. And now bring your mind to the feeling of your breath as you breathe in and out, starting at the tip of your nose, following the breath as you breathe all the way into your lungs, and then out, and once again through your nose. Breathing in, breathing out. If any mental activities arise, such as thoughts or emotions, feelings, and the like, don't cling to them or grasp at them. Also, don't try to forcefully push them away or even deny them. By refocusing on your breath, let them go naturally. And likewise, if your mind becomes dull, refocus on your breath more brightly. This way, refocusing on the breath is the antidote for both the agitated mind as well as the dull mind. So now let's practice like this for a few minutes in silence. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. So now you can feel very pleased with yourself for engaging in this practice. And fill yourself with universal loving kindness, with Maha Metta, great loving kindness. This loving kindness is generated straight out of your mind. Maybe we can call that your heart. Heart and mind, really the same thing, isn't it? When you use that word heart as a metaphor. So now, generating this immense loving kindness should make yourself feel very happy with yourself. So much so now that it overflows and radiates outwards, initially to your family and friends, you can see that they are happy. This loving kindness is freeing them from their sufferings. Also now include strangers. And also those people you find difficult. So now radiate this loving kindness out gradually further and further, gathering more momentum as we do it. Now include all living beings around your immediate area. Further and further throughout your whole state. Throughout the whole country. And other countries, initially those you're familiar with, and also those that you're not familiar with, until your loving kindness pervades this whole world. May all of the living beings have happiness and be free from suffering. May the whole world be at peace. And likewise, other worlds throughout the whole solar system. And the galaxy. And the universe. And beyond just this universe, and throughout infinite space, this immeasurable loving kindness pervading infinite space. Radiating from your mind, from your heart. And I'll also be present here and now, and we will recite the dedication prayer. Due to this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of the Buddha, so that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhicitta not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline but increase forevermore. And may the precious view of Shunyata not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline but increase forevermore. So Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Or in English, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha. Or totally in English, I take refuge in the enlightened ones. I take refuge in the immaculate teachings, and I take refuge in the supportive spiritual community. So when you're taking refuge, you can do this fully in English if you like. But we do tend to use the Pali words or the Sanskrit words, depending on what tradition you practice and what you're attracted to. So we do tend to use the word Buddha, for instance, and that's fine as well. But you can do it many ways. Some people in Vietnamese, I know Kien is taking part, and that is Namo Phat, Namo Phat, Namo Tang. Of course, my pronunciation maybe not great. There's many ways to do it. The Japanese tradition, Namo Kie Butsu, Namo Kie Ho, Namo Kie So. What else? Tibetan Namo Sangye, Namo Cho, Namo Dan. So even though it's done in slightly different prayer. But then, what other ones can you think of? Chinese Namo Fo, Namo Fa, Namo Sang. Namo meaning can mean I take refuge, but also can mean paying homage to. So, for instance, Namo Tassa and so forth. At the beginning of our chanting, this is using that word Namo to pay homage to. Then when we say Namo Buddhaya, you could say it's homage to the Buddha, but it's also us taking refuge in the Buddha. Okay, I just thought I'd share that with you. And of course, other traditions tend to use the Pali or the Sanskrit. Like the Theravada tradition, for instance, would always use the Pali. This is actually, the refuge prayer or the Vandana prayer, the homage prayer first, then the refuge prayer. They're actually the initial prayers the Buddha taught to his first disciples, except there were no Sangha at the time, so there was 2 jewels, not 3 jewels. So you would have said Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, and that's it in the beginning. Also, just another thing to mention, and this relates to a question I was asked during the week. In the beginning, there was no precepts. The Buddha didn't set forth any precepts to begin with, whether that be for monastics, males or females, or the laity, actually, because the initial disciples apparently did nothing wrong. There was no need to set forth the precepts. The precepts only started to come forth when the Buddha, or he set forth the precepts when he noticed some error in the practice of his disciples, of his students. And the more he noticed that, the more the precepts came. It is said like that. I don't know if you know that at all. Because quite often we look at it now in the world today, and we have a certain number of precepts. Like for instance, in the Theravada tradition, I think it's 226 for monks. For monks in there's 250 precepts for the monks in the Mahayana tradition, and onward from there. There's some other precepts you take as well, the Bodhisattva precepts, of which there can be enumerated either 48 or up to 64. Then, of course, if you practice Vajrayana, there's the tantric samayas, or the precepts, the tantric precepts as well. So there's many you can take. But the most important one, I think you know which it is, or what it is. Do not kill. At very least, I remember attending a Dharma talk, the very first Dharma talk I attended by Geshe Gelsen in Los Angeles, or south of Los Angeles, before I took him on as one of my teachers. And he was giving the precepts and some tantric initiations or empowerments. And he said, at very least, if you can't keep all of the precepts for whatever reason, keep the first one for sure. Of course, your first 5 precepts, that everybody must keep, then you should try to keep them. But it sometimes could be difficult, to do with work and to do with other things, telling non-truths or things like that. And because of old habits as well, you may not realize that on a very subtle level, you still may be breaking the precepts. That's another reason why we need to practice repentance all the time, to keep changing that, keep creating the better habit, and the more conducive to happiness habit and enlightenment habit. But at very least, the killing, don't do that. We still do it. We may think that we don't kill, but accidentally we do. There's many living beings around us that we can't see with the naked eye. And so maybe we step on them, things like that. Or even you're in the garden sometimes by accident. Maybe you, dig up the garden to do some good things, plant vegetables or look after your flowers. But there may be some insect that we accidentally kill or harm in some way, or at very least disturb them. So that's why we need to continue to replace the unwholesome with the wholesome, continue to utilize, in this case, these 6 paramitas that we're starting to talk about now, utilize them as antidotes. I alluded to that a little bit last week, but I'll talk a bit about that today. And then we'll talk next week, maybe a little bit more detail about bodhicitta and the relative and the ultimate bodhicitta, especially the relative. And then, of course, the 2 aspects of the relative, it may be a bit more detail. I may go into it a little bit today too. But the first one, of course, is the aspirational. This is mentally, just training the mind to be compassionate, to be non-biased and so forth. And then, of course, there's the practical. Or sometimes you could say this is, what did I write down? Applicational, or the application bodhicitta. This also can be known as practical. I tend to use the words practical. And this is actually putting it into practice, not only here and now like this, but in every action, everything that you do. It becomes virtuous when everything is based on the bodhicitta, when you're doing it with this altruistic intention. Even if we're not as skillful as we'd like to be with our actions, with our thoughts and with our speech, that actually everything we do has good intention. The bodhicitta can also be known as the altruistic intention, free from bias. Of course, we're not perfect like that here, but we need to keep practicing this generosity, this morality, this patience, the effort, and the concentration. We need to continue to practice these skillful methods I say it as often as possible, but actually train yourself now. Train yourself to actually practice it all the time. Every time you find yourself not practicing it, going into old habits, being reactive in that sense, then don't be hard on yourself, but just go, okay, fair enough. Now I need to put my mind back onto the practice, back onto these the first 5 of the 6 paramitas as antidotes, but also a way of life. If we can develop generosity so much so that it now is natural for us, then it's much easier then, as mentioned previously, to be moral. And then if we can develop this morality, that every time that we may be immoral or even not actively moral, you could say, then we correct that. It becomes natural to correct it. Then, of course, with morality, you can be more patient in dealing with the difficulties that we experience, the obstacles that we experience on the path to enlightenment. And then we're able to make more effort based on this patience and develop more enthusiasm for the practice. And then, of course, develop this concentration to an excessively deep level, or not excessive, that's probably not the right word, but I think you know what I mean, to profoundly deep states of consciousness, okay? And then, of course, this is all based on wisdom. And as we practice these first 5, our wisdom has the opportunity to increase. And then, of course, as we practice the contemplative meditation to understand how things really are, the impermanent nature, the difficulty or the difficult nature of things, and the lack of self and the emptiness of self of all relative phenomena, then we're getting ourselves closer to the ultimate bodhicitta, the ultimate awakened mind, and the supreme wisdom. And sometimes we're going to go backwards. It's going to happen. That's life. But every time we go backwards, check it. Go, okay, there's the old habit again. And then then we go forwards. Sometimes, I think there's an old saying, there's something like occasionally you must take one step backwards, or maybe stay still for a moment and then move forward 2 steps, 1 step back, 2 forward, so that's checking our mind, giving ourselves the opportunity. Don't rush the practice. Don't rush your meditation practice. Even you engage in loving kindness on the cushion and then off the cushion in your everyday life. Don't rush it. Give yourself the opportunity. Just like a good meal, if you rush the meal, you give yourself indigestion. But if you eat your meal nice and calmly, not too little, not too much, then you give your digestive system the opportunity to digest the food at just the balanced rate that it needs to for us to intake the nutrition that we want from the food. It's the same with our practice, not too much, not too little, not too tight, not too loose. So anyway, there was a couple of questions that come along as well. I'll go back, I'll digress for a moment, and I'll go back to the 5 or the 6 parameters just after I address these. I thought they were interesting for all of you, and it's related to practice. Okay, so remember the Dharma Talk, when you hear it initially, it's like a theory or hypothesis and then a theory, and then you have to contemplate it for yourself. In other words, you have to test it, just like a goldsmith would test for real gold, just to find out whether it's real, whether it's true, what is the nature of it, and so on and so forth. But this instruction that I'll give you now relate to your actual practice here and now, and in every moment of your life, if you could say. And this is related to contemplation and then absorbing a mind with some understandings. At the moment, it's going to be relative understandings. It's going to be an indirect understanding rather than direct yet. Okay, but the question came of, how do I get over a self-centered mind and stop seeking to boost my ego? And have pure intentions in everything. So obviously this is a deep question. The more you can go into it, the deeper it gets, isn't it? Because we're talking about the wisdom of emptiness, how to realize the lack of ego, the lack of a self, and also to maintain the pure intentions, the bodhicitta intentions. That's why I mentioned that before, to have as much as possible and to develop more and more and more this altruistic, compassionate intention. That, like I said, if all our actions are based on this, then all of our actions bring merit, bring virtue. Okay. So I just briefly, I answered by saying you should practice 3 types of contemplation related initially to get over the self-centered mind. The next one is another way to get over the self-centered mind and also to develop more and more bodhicitta, and that is to think about others and freeing others from suffering rather than thinking of yourself to be free, And so wisdom and compassion. And then also the other one was related to, contemplating the good results of having good intentions. The law of karma, in other words, and the bad outcomes of having bad intentions. Okay, so maybe we'll address that one first. So if you can, like when you're meditating, take some time either before the formal breath meditation, for instance, or after, and contemplate these. Contemplate the law of karma. Contemplate the cause brings an effect. The effect, of course, is dependent on the cause. This cause was also dependent, you could say, on previous causes and effects. Okay, so it's until we break the cycle, then we will experience this all the time. If we cause something, then we will experience the result of it, okay, or the effect. And if it's good, if it's based on pure intention, bodhicitta intention, then the result is good. The outcome is good. Contemplate that. Even if you base your intention is based on still some self-centeredness there, but it's done with good motivation and also the follow through with the good acts or good words, then this also brings a good effect. Not as good as the bodhicitta intention, but still a good result will be achieved. But if you have bad intentions, whether you follow through with the actions as well, whether or not you follow through with the actions as well, you'll still create some sort of negative, you could say, or bad result, bad outcome for yourself. Okay. So contemplate that if you could give yourself the opportunity. It may sound very simple talking about it now, but I don't think we've absorbed our minds with this yet. So we need to do it often. The next contemplation, I'll actually go to the compassion. Think about, you contemplate the suffering of others, the difficulty that others go through. Remember that these living beings, whether at the moment you like them or not, or you could be even indifferent to them, towards them, have been your relative in the previous life. At some stage, or at very least, you have to know that this is possible, that all of these living beings have been related to you. Now, I would say, whether or not you had good experiences with this particular type of relative I may mention, like your grandma, for instance, would you like to hurt your grandma? What about their enemy? Sometimes you may get in your life, you think, oh, I'm going to get that guy or get that woman. But maybe they were your grandma in a previous life. I think that can change your view. So contemplate, though, on the suffering of others, on the birth, the difficulties experienced during birth. Quite often, we like to think, oh, the birth of a baby is wonderful and everything like that. And yes, of course it is on the relative level to the mother and the father and the relatives. But actually, it's a lot of pain, a lot of difficulties experienced by the baby, as well as by the parents, especially the mother. A lot of physical pain, mental anguish as well. I won't go into detail of that, but think about, contemplate that. Contemplate the difficulties the beings experience because of everyday sufferings, like getting a cold or having a sore back or not getting enough sleep, all of these obvious sufferings. Then, of course, the suffering of impermanence. An example of that is your happiness. If you get really happy, really joyful, it doesn't last in this world. This is called the suffering of impermanence. Then, of course, we have the suffering of no self, or we can call all-pervasive suffering. And this is that every single thing we experience, all the causes and effects we experience within this relative existence is in its very nature suffering, okay? Contemplate the sufferings of others. Takes your mind off yourself. I remember when I used to work in TV, probably early 90s, this comes from a memory I had. I used to visit sometimes hospitals. There was a hospital in Sydney. I was working on a TV show called E Street, and I, for a short period of time, was involved with Make-A-Wish Foundation, and I used to go and visit the kids, and I did some other things with them as well. But I remember this one kid, unfortunately, he was terminally ill with cancer and, always in hospital. And I went to visit him a couple of times. And it left a big imprint in my heart. Here I was on occasions not getting enough sleep, doing 16-hour days on this TV show on occasions. And then, getting home and thinking, oh, now I've got to go for a run because I had to remain really fit physically for the part, and, complaining about these small things. Maybe you can take it to the modern time, right? Today, people complain about wearing masks and having to, being locked down, things like that. Actually, if you take your mind and think about the children in the children's hospital that are suffering from terminal illness, I think this can help you take away, not only develop more compassion for others, but also take away your focus on yourself. Okay, so that's another contemplation. The next one, like I mentioned, the first one earlier was just contemplate how this relates to the 5 skandhas teachings that we just had. So maybe you can review some of these teachings, and how everything's impermanent. Our physicality and our mentality are constantly changing. They have tried to find a self. Are you going to find the self in the body? You're going to find it in the mind. Constantly changing. Where's the self? Are you going to find it in both the mind and the body, or neither the mind and the body, somewhere outside? Obviously not. So contemplate on those as well. Now we have gone under 1 minute. I'll pick these up a little bit next week as well, and also talk more detail about using these 5 parameters, first 5 parameters, as antidotes for negative mental afflictions. So practice really well, be really safe, take care, be a good influence on others around you. And even if you are wearing a mask, you can smile with your eyes. So don't worry. See? Take care. I rejoice in your goodness as always.